Hey folks, how you doing? Doc Kane coming at you from Kobe, Japan with another episode of the podcast Marketers Who Can't Market. Thanks for joining in here tonight. If you're looking for ideas as to how to get out of the marketing muck, if you're stuck and you want to get back to business building, that's what we're here to help with. All sorts of different ideas from kind of practical things you can do, as well as just kind of brainstorming, things I've noticed, stuff that's bugging me, all that sort of stuff. And hopefully, very soon, I keep saying this if you've been listening to me for a while, hopefully, very soon, some people uh, across the ocean that I can interview, and people here in Japan, of course, too. I just haven't done any outreach yet, but that'll come. So I'm finding I have enough things to kind of talk about for the most part, at least for a while. And I'd like to get a number of these under my belt. I don't know, we're 2 weeks into it right now. Thanks, Russell Brunson, for the challenge and Traffic Secrets book, which kind of put me on this path. And I've actually done podcasting before, and I worked in radio, obviously, so I'm familiar at least with blabbering. It's not that difficult for me to do. What am I talking about tonight? Tonight, I want to talk about this idea I had. It's kind of what's interesting about doing podcast or talking on the radio in general is you start to kind of speak, and then you have ideas that kind of come to the front of your mind, to the fore of your mind, if you will, and then you get stories to tell, or you get examples, all sorts of things. And sometimes I don't know what I'm going to talk about before I turn on the mic. And today I was wondering, what am I going to cover? And I have like 5, 7 pages of notes of things I could talk about, headlines, but I wasn't really sure today. And then I was reminded or given an idea, just like I was last week, just walking home. There's always something interesting to see walking home here in Japan up the mountain. It's quite a fascinating place to live in many regards. So I was walking up the mountain today, and this older gentleman that I see quite regularly was a little bit in the distance in front of me, and normally I see him moving very slowly, as a lot of older people do here in Japan. And so, because I was a little far away from him, I really couldn't tell if he was moving or not. Um, but as I got closer, I could tell he was not moving. He was standing still, which again is not uncommon. Sometimes people just you got to take a break right on the mountain. It's a big fucking mountain. Um, but this guy was talking with somebody, and so there's another older person, younger than him but still quite old. They were having a conversation, and this older gentleman, as I said, I've seen before, numerous occasions. I see him often walking up the hill with a little like cane thing or a walker or pushing a kind of like a lot of older people in Japan have these like I don't know what they are. They're like it's kind of like a like luggage that people pull in the. Some people have these silly things that they bring to work these days. Like they're going to the fucking airport to bring these like pulling luggage. So they don't carry a briefcase anymore. That kind of thing, but really cheap looking, and it's really just meant to pick up like a daikon at the grocery store with the tops sticking out. And I think it's a seat. Like they can stop and sit down if they want to. So a lot of people push those things. So I see him walking with a cane, or he's pushing this sort of thing. I've seen him move up the mountain pushing a bicycle. A bicycle. So he obviously he can barely walk. So he's not riding ever the bicycle. He's not riding it down the hill or up the hill, but he's using it for stability, pushing a bicycle up a mountain. Pushing a bicycle in a straight line is not easy, as you likely know if you've ever tried to do it before. So I see this guy in all sorts of modes. The very first time I saw him, he was walking with a cane down the street, looking like he was just kind of like walking around for exercise that day. And I was approaching him. We were walking toward one another, so I could see his face and he could see my face. And he he said to me, he said, "I'm 91 years old." That was the first thing he ever said to me. Just the first time I ever saw the guy walking towards it. I'm 91 years old. He was super happy and a big smile on his face, and he stopped after he said that as he was saying it, and I stopped and I was like, Oh, wow, that's great. I said, I'm 51 in Japanese, you know? That's really cool. Amazing. Omoshiroi. Suge. This is like very interesting and awesome. Um, and I didn't have much else to talk to him about because my Japanese is not that great at all. But I said something about the weather or it's nice to see you. And okay, I have to go to work now. I'll see you later. Um, But it was super cool, and the dude was like really happy, and I thought I had a great little interaction, and I liked him immediately. Right, I liked this guy right away. And when I saw him today, uh, and I've seen him lately a few times actually chatting with people. So he's probably been here in the neighborhood for a long, long time, and he knows people. And these people that he's talking to who are also old, um, are actually relatively close to him in age. So he's probably seen them grow up, and he knows them and things like that. Um, and when I see him talking with these people, it does not seem like just a kind of quick conversation that he's in. That he seems like going to be in a conversation for a while, and I don't get the sense that he's like just kind of burdening them with conversation, but they're actually talking, right? Um, and that's unusual in Japan. You don't really see a lot of people kind of just like hanging out in the street talking. Sometimes you'll see like a couple older women here and there talking around a bunch of flower pots or something like that, or at a doorstep, but it's not terribly common. And I don't really see it with men on the street. They tend to go in the bar and do it, at least to my eyes, right? But anyway, I saw this guy again, and he's talking, and lately I've seen him talking with people a couple times. And then I started to remember this idea that I had a week or so ago, where I was a bit frustrated by the conversation that I was. I wasn't having a conversation. I was a bit frustrated by a comment I received on a Facebook post that I had responded to. Uh, Actually, I asked a question in a Facebook group, and a few people gave me some feedback, and one person gave me feedback that was just kind of grumpy. And I was like, like what? How do you know how to talk to people? Like, what kind of? And I had all these crazy ideas as a writer. I'm like, oh, I need to write a book about this. Like, this is it. And I've had this idea before with regard to communication because I'm basically a communications writing guy, and I have a good sense for this thing, and I'm sensitive, I think, which is an important quality to have as a writer. It puts me in people's shoes a lot. I'm quite empathetic, and when people are kind of mean in text, I definitely feel it. I had a friend. Uh, or a colleague who said once this most beautiful thing that I think is so appropriate, and we were talking about how some sort of text reply didn't kind of work, and it was rubbing him the wrong way, or could rub somebody the wrong way, and he said, "Ah, yeah, that's the sting of text." And that's a genius way to look at it, right? It stings when you don't say something the right way to somebody. So this question that I had posted was in a group of people who are constantly looking for feedback on their sites and things like that. It's kind of it's a great group about affiliate marketing and things like that. And I had this little question there about this really long post that I'd written. I've mentioned before. 16,000 some odd words, and I was wondering why the hell isn't this thing kind of converting the way I want it to convert? What am I missing? And what am I missing, particularly when it shows up on Google at the top of the page? It's like usually either number one or number two. And why, even though it's showing really high, are people not clicking on it there on Google? Um, and it's basically, I mean, I know it's basically something about the way it's being presented visibly to the searcher. Um, and it could be that I'm not known. Like the other people who rank really well for that specific term, it's active duty military side hustles, are all military people. So they're either a military wife or service members, active or veterans themselves. And it could be that perhaps that the people who are looking for like side hustles as military folks know these people by name because they probably see them pop up everywhere and they click on their links instead of mine. It could be a million things. I don't know, and I didn't know when I posted the question, which is why I posted the question. And some people had some good, great feedback actually. And one person responded, the very first words out of her mouth. And notice how I say words out of her mouth, by the way. It's text, right? But it still feels like that. So the very first thing she said, that's also wrong. The very first thing she typed. You see how that's not adequate, though? We feel this as words. We feel this as somebody says this thing to us. We've heard it. That's the power of language. And so we're strangers, right? And all of what I want to frame this around, by the way, if I can't remember if I mentioned this already, but how do we talk to strangers? This is really important. That 91-year-old guy started a conversation with me just by saying, hey, I'm 91 years old. That was his opener, and it was a good one. It was a good one, right? This person decided to open her communication with me by saying, way too long, was what she said. The post was way too long. And when I, was a journalist or something like that, and if she hears this, great. It's good feedback. I should put it in the comments, and maybe I will actually, since I'm doing it here right now. But she said way too long. When I was a journalist, they told us we should never write anything more than 1,000 or 1,500 words, I think. You may have to change the whole article. Now, she might mean well, but her approach sucks. So she makes a crucial error right off the bat by not even addressing me as a person, right? So I'll get to the tips later, but that's one of the things that she just blows. So her first words are a negative criticism, right? And so as the reader, I'm going to take that for what it is, right? That's a punch in the gut or the face or wherever you want to take that sort of a hit. That's where it is, right? It's negative right off the bat. Now, the first thing I think about is, yes, it's negative, and I'm quite capable of taking negative criticism. In fact, it drives me to perform better, but it does help if it's framed in a different way, right? So she shoves a negative at me, but the biggest thing I think of right away is, lady, like I know the article is long because I mentioned that in my question. But my question is not about why people are not clicking on things when they get to the article. It's why are they not clicking on the link within Google to get to the article. So she makes two big errors right away. She's a meanie and she gets the fucking question wrong. So people are too quick to comment online and in a variety of forms, and not just online, but in person as well. Very much people are not thinking before they speak, before they type, and this is a problem. So what I want you to think about today is how do you speak with strangers, right? First of all, speak with strangers because you're going to learn a lot about life. Talk with the 91-year-old guy, and God, I wish I could speak Japanese. Because that guy has amazing stories to tell, I'm sure, particularly because he seems to be a talker. I would love to talk with him. Talk with strangers. But make sure you're doing a good job of it, right? And so here are a few things that you could do to excel at it as much as you can from the beginning. First of all, be courteous, right? I mean, it never hurts to be nice when you're first meeting someone. If you're responding to a comment or asking a question online, do your best to try and use someone's name, okay? A lot of people do a good job at this. It's not always necessary, especially if you're ducking in and out. But if you're going to be critical, mention that person's name. If you're going to be helpful and are writing a sentence, or excuse me, are writing a response that's longer than one or two sentences, use the person's name. Say hello. Say, oh, hey, or say something about the question. Oh, good question. Or, oh, I don't really agree with that so much, but I see where you're coming from, John, and da-ga-da-ga-da. And make it feel natural, right? That's not necessarily natural the way I say it. but make it feel natural. Be courteous. Use their name as much, not as much as you can, but use their name if you can at the very outset of the communication, right? Be patient in reading. Make sure you get the actual question. Make sure you understand what it is, or make sure that your feedback makes sense when you deliver it. These are all really important, right? Be careful of the word you. Be careful of using words that I forget exactly. It's escaping me how these words are defined. Absolutes. Don't use absolutes if you can avoid it. Right? If you can avoid it, don't say like what this other gentleman said to me tonight on another Facebook post. 100% something, right? Nothing is 100%, even if you think it might be. Nothing is 0%. Nothing is always. Nothing is never, right? Nothing is nothing. To contradict myself, right? So stay away from absolutes. They're deadly. And so these are things you can keep in mind when you're working and communicating online, in email, anything where you're typing. Remember that sting of text thing, and I think that will keep you in the right frame of mind. The other thing about this sort of thing is it's more translatable or more transferable in the real world, and when you're actually talking. So I mentioned this idea of be careful of the word you, right? I wrote this book called Never Be Fat, Dumb, Broken, Lonely Again. It's a cool book. You should check it out. It's all of this like kind of one-page a piece wisdom nuggets that I created. And one of them is about this particular thing. And I learned it growing up in a household where people like to kind of take verbal swings at each other. And I never liked it, and I probably became sensitive to it as a result. And I've been around other people who are like this too. I've had bosses who are a little kind of crazy. I've had acquaintances who are kind of kooky as well. And this one thing stood out, has always stood out to me, and it's the use of the word you in arguments. One can avoid many an argument by not using the word you, right? And because you is like using our name, right? Incidentally, in Japan, you is a very negative thing to say to most people too. You can use it among friends, but this word you is kind of, most people stay away from it if they can. Just in normal conversation. But in an argument, if you say something like, hey, why did you do that? And I don't like the way you did that. And can you come over here? Can you come over here? Right? It's all about tone. And you kind of amplifies a negative tone when you're upset. You, right? So you can change that dynamic by talking about yourself. I feel why? I don't understand that, why is it that this is happening? I'm coming up with shitty responses, but you can do it in the moment that you're in. You can avoid you. Trust me, it's easy to do. It's not as easy to talk about on podcast, but you can stay away from that word. I have to look at my writing. I said a couple nights ago, it's easier to write these things, right? You can think with a more clearer mind. I can, and I wrote about it quite succinctly. Maybe I'll include it. I think I have a link for that. I can include a link. But try and stay away from that, and definitely stay away from it when you're typing, because it's really kind of feels yucky, right? Likewise, if you use that word in a positive sense, it has a tremendous uplifting power, right? So that's how powerful that word is. Copywriters usually love to use the word you, your. It's overused. It's not necessary in copywriting, even though lots of people believe it is. So, a couple things to think about. Introductions, first communication, talking with strangers, super important. Super duper important. And one word, 2 words, 3 words can make a difference. Hey, I'm 91. That's 3 words, I guess, right? My wife, when I met her, said 2 words to me. and I fell in love immediately. And it's turned out okay, right? So all she did was say her name. She said Reiko desu, and that was it. I was hooked. Introductions are important. Talking with strangers and being polite and showing your kindness and your courtesy and your true self is really important. And some people show their true self in a negative way. And all the advice about trying to change your approach doesn't really work on people um, who aren't nice to begin with, right? There's a lot of talk in America these days about like how people should be acting differently and how uh, mm, there's a divide, right? There's a divide because these people think that way and these people think that way, and we need to change them. We need to change them. Both sides need to change. That guy, why does that guy do that? Why does that guy whistle at that girl? Why does that girl treat that guy so badly? Whatever. It goes all ways, right? But the thing I think that most people miss is that these are basically um, hardwired behavioral issues in people, and you can't change them. You can inform those people who make mistakes and who are not trying to be off color or um, disrespectful, but are just kind of saying the wrong thing. If you're kind of inherently good and you just make mistakes, like start a sentence by way too long, if that person were to hear my feedback tonight and be embarrassed about that, let's say, or apologetic about it, then that means that she's kind of open to learning. But if she were to take the opposite approach and be defensive about it, then that's just kind of her character, right? And I know many people like this. And so the advice falls on deaf ears, right? I had a friend who used to say you can't argue with crazy. It's the same idea, right? So if you're listening to this, and hopefully my listeners are cool, kind people, and you've made some of these mistakes on your own in the past, maybe this will help you. Um, I hope it does. Just keep it in mind that you can make a world of difference when you're nice and talk to strangers. You meet lots of cool people that way. Don't be afraid. And if you're Japanese and listening to this, hell, definitely talk to strangers. Japanese people aren't the best at talking with strangers. That is it for today, May 27th, 2021. The podcast, Marketers Who Can't Market or Talk with Strangers with kindness in their voice. I hope you're having a great week. It rained like a bastard out here today. My dog was so wet earlier in the day. He gets like rubbed down. He gets like a towel rub when I bring him in. He loved that. I did not. I was very wet. And he likes to get hugged when I bring him in too. And thank God he didn't want to be hugged today. Otherwise, I'd be changing clothes and all sorts of things. So hopefully it was dry where you're at. Coming up on the weekend, hope you have a good one. I don't know what I'll be doing. Hopefully the weather is good. Peace out. We will see you tomorrow. Later.